Single dad CEO, Millionaire, rescued a little girl from the hailstorm. She said, "My mom used to tell me about you." The town's annual spring fair had always been a cheerful event. Cotton candy stands, paper lanterns, carousel music humming in the background. That morning, the sky had been clear, the air soft with the scent of blooming dogwoods. Aubrey Bennett, dressed in her raincoat and worn sneakers, led her preschool class through the rows of colorful booths. Her long blonde hair was braided loosely on either side, tucked behind her ears. She held tightly to a clipboard with the children's names and emergency contacts, her eyes constantly scanning the group. Luna, in her favorite pink dress and flower-covered rain boots, clutched a small plastic cup of lemonade and skipped ahead to the puppet show tent. "Stay close, sweetheart," Aubrey called after her, her voice firm but gentle. Then the sky cracked open. It happened in a blink. Thunder roared without warning, and seconds later, ice began falling. Sharp, fast, heavy. The joyful noise of the fair turned to chaos. As parents grabbed their children, vendors scrambled to cover their wares, and teachers shouted names into the rising wind. "Hail! Everyone inside the Civic Center!" someone yelled over a loudspeaker. Aubrey turned in a circle, counting heads. "Cameron, Sophia, Nolan. Where's Luna?" Her chest tightened. "Luna!" The child was nowhere in sight. Aubrey's heart dropped as panic surged through her veins. She pushed through the crowd, calling her daughter's name again and again, her eyes stinging, not from the hail but from fear. A block away, the tinted windows of a sleek black SUV rolled silently down as it pulled to a slow stop near the park's edge. Jackson Wolfe, freshly out of a high-stakes investor meeting at the nearby Civic Center, had planned to take a brief walk before heading back to his office. But now, through the blur of falling ice, something small and pink caught his eye. A little girl. She was curled up beneath a bench at the edge of the path, arms over her head, her knees drawn in. Hailstones the size of marbles bounced off the concrete around her. Her tiny body shook. Jackson didn't think. He shoved his door open, ignoring the pelting ice, and sprinted across the street. The hail pounded his shoulders and back as he dropped to one knee beside her. "Hey," he said, his voice low but clear. "You're okay now." Wide blue eyes peeked up at him. Her lips trembled. "I lost my mommy," she whispered. "It's all right. I've got you." He shrugged off his wool coat and wrapped it around her small frame, lifting her gently into his arms. Her fingers clung to his collar, her face pressed against his shoulder. Once inside the SUV, he turned up the heat and buckled her into the passenger seat, draping a dry blanket over her. She looked at him, cheeks flushed, hair damp against her forehead. Then she said, barely above a whisper, "My mom used to tell me about you." Jackson blinked. "What did you say?" She smiled shyly, a tiny dimple appearing in her left cheek. "She told me stories, about a man who was brave and kind. I think it was you." For a moment, Jackson couldn't speak. The storm outside continued its rampage, battering the roof of the car. But inside, something in his chest stirred, something that hadn't moved in a long time. That voice, that face. Something about her felt hauntingly familiar. He glanced again at the girl beside him. What stories had her mother told? And why did he feel like he had heard her voice? Somewhere, once, on a quieter day, in a different life. He didn't know her name. Not yet. But somehow, it felt like she already knew him. The hallway outside the community medical center buzzed with voices, nurses calling names, children crying, parents speaking in hurried tones. Aubrey pushed through the crowd, breath shallow, eyes darting through open doors and corners. "Excuse me," she said to a nurse, her voice tight. "My daughter's missing. Luna Bennett, 5 years old, blonde hair, pink dress. We got separated during the hailstorm." The nurse scanned a clipboard and nodded. "Room 7, straight down the hall, then right. She's safe." Safe. The word nearly brought Aubrey to her knees. She stumbled forward, her feet moving on instinct. When she reached the doorway, she stopped, breath catching in her throat. Through the small glass window, she saw him. Jackson Wolfe. He sat on a small plastic chair, awkwardly hunched forward, gently patting dry the curls of the little girl in front of him. His expensive gray suit jacket was draped over the back of the chair, sleeves damp and wrinkled. His tie was loosened, and his white shirt clung to him in places from the storm. But it wasn't the disheveled look that hit her. It was his face. Gone was the polished, unreadable executive expression. Instead, his eyes were focused, tender. His brow furrowed as he worked, quietly attentive, as if nothing else in the world existed but the child in front of him. And Luna sat calmly beneath his touch, eyes closed, peaceful. Aubrey stepped into the room. "Mommy!" Luna cried, springing from the chair and throwing herself into her arms. "This is the man from your stories, right?" Aubrey froze. The sentence hit harder than thunder. She had never said his name. In 5 years, she had told Luna only fragments, stories of a kind man who once made her laugh, then vanished. A man who never knew what he left behind. And now, that man stood before her. Jackson looked up. His eyes met hers, and for a moment, time fractured. The air between them thickened, heavy with memory. "Aubrey," he said softly. She felt her heart stutter. "Hi." Silence stretched between them. Luna clung to her side, watching with curiosity. "You still wear your hair the same," he said after a moment, his voice quieter. Aubrey reached up, brushing a braid. "I didn't think I'd ever see you again. Not like this." Jackson stood slowly. He was broader than she remembered. Or maybe time had just made him seem larger. He looked the same, yet not. Older, but grounded. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. "I am now," she whispered, squeezing Luna close. Jackson's eyes dropped to the little girl. Something flickered there, something deep, unreadable. Aubrey could see him trying to piece things together, but he didn't ask. Not yet. She stepped back before any of it could surface. "Thank you," she said. Her voice trembled. "For helping her." Jackson gave a small nod. His eyes lingered on Luna a second longer, then shifted back to Aubrey. There was something unspoken behind them, curiosity, maybe, or recognition. Without another word, Aubrey turned and guided Luna toward the hallway. The crowd had thinned. Her heartbeat hadn't. She couldn't resist. She looked back. Jackson was still standing in the same spot, his tall frame silhouetted by the light inside the room. He hadn't moved, and something about that stillness told her this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. The next afternoon, Jackson sent a message, a simple one. "Coffee?" Aubrey stared at the text longer than she needed to. 6 years had passed, and yet, the weight of one word could still make her chest tighten. She agreed. They met at a small cafe by the lake, once their favorite spot, back in the days when things felt new and full of maybes. It had not changed much. The same ivy climbed up the side walls, and the same creaky chairs still lined the porch that overlooked the water. Jackson arrived first, seated outside under a pale green umbrella. He stood when she approached, his hand brushing the back of his neck, like it always did when he was unsure what to say. "Aubrey," he greeted. She smiled politely. "Hey." They sat, ordered, and for a while, said nothing that really mattered, talked about the storm, the weather, the town's rebuilt library. But silence has a way of tugging old threads, and soon enough, the careful words gave way to truth. "It was 6 years ago," Jackson said quietly. "Feels like a lifetime." "Or 10. Aubrey looked down at her cup. "Sometimes it feels like yesterday." He hesitated, then said, "Back then, I was building something, or at least trying to. My entire focus was on the company. My pitch deck was practically a second language. And the investors were circling. New York wanted me." She nodded slowly. "I remember. I told myself I had to go," he continued, "that if I didn't make it happen then, I'd lose everything. But I didn't see what I was already losing." Aubrey was silent for a long time. Then she said softly, "We never really ended, did we?" He shook his head. No, I think I just disappeared. Thought I was doing the right thing. You didn't even say goodbye." "I know." His voice cracked slightly. "I told myself it was just temporary, that once things settled, I'd come back. But I didn't. I wasn't brave enough." Aubrey looked out toward the lake. The reflection of the sky shimmered on the surface, clouds drifting across like thoughts that never stayed in one place. "You meant something to me, Jackson," she said finally. "But maybe we were never meant to be a story that finished." He looked at her then, really looked. "You were important to me too, Aubrey. I just wasn't man enough to protect that. I thought I had to choose between love and success, and I chose wrong." She said nothing, but her eyes softened. Then he told her what had happened since. 2 years ago, the company nearly folded. An investor pulled out at the worst moment. His accounts froze. Articles surfaced, tearing him apart. His wife, Celeste, left within weeks. Their son, Miles, had just turned 1. "I remember holding him and realizing I didn't know how to be a father," Jackson admitted. "I was a mess, but he needed me, so I figured it out." Aubrey listened, her hands cupped around her mug. "Now he's 3, Jackson said. "He lives with me, still calls for his mom sometimes in his sleep." Her eyes glistened. "I'm raising Luna alone too. No one knows who her father is. I never told anyone." She paused, then added gently, "But I used to tell her stories about a kind man, the kind who once made me believe the world had something good in it." He didn't speak. His jaw clenched, as though he were holding back a question he could not yet ask. They paid their bill, and as they stepped off the patio, Luna, who had been playing nearby with a stack of picture books, ran up to them. She reached into her little backpack and pulled out a small, flattened sprig of lavender. "This is for you, Mr. Jackson," she said proudly. "Mommy said you liked this smell." Jackson blinked, stunned. He took the flower from her gently. "I do. I really do." He remembered how Aubrey used to use lavender as a bookmark in college, how that scent used to cling to his hoodie long after she had hugged him. As Luna skipped ahead, humming to herself, Jackson stood still, lavender pressed between his fingers. Some wounds had never closed, but some memories never faded. And maybe, just maybe, some pieces still belonged together. The day after the hailstorm, Aubrey received an email from the school board. Classroom repairs would take at least 48 hours. The preschool where she taught would be closed for 2 days. She sighed, glancing at Luna, who was twirling in her pink dress across the living room, humming. Aubrey had planned to stay home, but that morning brought an urgent complication, a district-wide emergency budget meeting. She, as the lead early education representative, couldn't miss. Scrolling through her contacts, unsure who to ask for help, fate stepped in. At the children's bookstore downtown, she and Luna ran into Jackson Wolfe. More precisely, Luna ran into Miles. "Hey," Luna squealed. "You!" Miles blinked, then smiled. "From the park." They threw their arms around each other like old friends. Jackson, crouched beside Miles with a dinosaur book, stood up when he saw Aubrey, expression unreadable, but not unkind. "We meet again," he said. Aubrey smiled slightly. "Looks like the kids already know each other." "They do. Park buddies, I guess." Luna and Miles plopped down on the carpet, flipping through a pop-up book. Aubrey hesitated, then admitted, "Luna's school is closed after the storm. I have a board meeting this afternoon. I was just trying to figure out childcare." Jackson looked at the kids, then back at her. "If you trust me, I can take them both. They clearly get along." She paused. She wanted to say no, to keep her distance, to keep secrets safe. But Luna was beaming, eyes full of hope. And Jackson, normally so guarded, looked almost gentle. "Just the afternoon," Aubrey said. "I'll bring them back by 5, he promised. The small zoo outside the city was quiet, perfect for 2 kids and a man trying to remember how to laugh. Luna grabbed Miles's hand as soon as they passed through the gates. They ran from one enclosure to the next, pointing at lions, elephants, giraffes. Luna named the animals like fairy tale creatures. Miles, shy by nature, followed her lead with a grin. Jackson sat nearby on a bench, sipping lukewarm coffee. His son was smiling in a way he hadn't seen in months. And Luna. She felt familiar. Her questions, her joy, her presence. As they ate ice cream, Luna turned to him. "Mr. Jackson, have you ever loved someone so much that you still remember them all the time?" Jackson paused. "Yes," he said quietly. "And I think I never stopped remembering." Luna nodded. "That's how Mommy is. She remembers someone too." He didn't ask who. When clouds rolled in, he brought them to a bookstore nearby. While the kids settled into the reading corner, Jackson wandered through the aisles. At the back, he found a wooden display of art supplies. One box caught his eye, a carved set of colored pencils. An engraving option was offered. He didn't know why he bought it. Maybe it reminded him of Aubrey, who used to collect boxes like this in college. He asked the clerk to engrave the lid. Luna's World. In the car, he handed the gift to Luna. She gasped and hugged it tight. "I'm going to draw everything I love," she whispered. "This is my favorite thing ever." On the drive back, both kids fell asleep in the back seat, heads leaning together, mouths slightly open. Jackson glanced in the mirror and froze. There was something about their features, their brows, their chins, the way Luna tilted her head in sleep, just like him. A flicker of suspicion passed through him. Coincidence, he told himself. He pulled into Aubrey's driveway as the sky turned golden. She opened the door, clearly nervous. "They were perfect," he said softly. "Thanks for trusting me." Aubrey looked torn, then managed a small smile. "Thank you for giving her such a good day." That night, Jackson sat beside Miles's bed, tucking him in. The boy looked up, eyes heavy with sleep. "If I did something wrong in the past," Jackson asked quietly, "would you forgive me?" Miles didn't answer. He just rolled over and wrapped his arms around his father's neck. Sometimes forgiveness didn't need words. Jackson sat in his home office late into the night, a quarterly report open before him, but he had not read a single line. His mind was elsewhere, circling around a little girl in a pink dress. Luna's laughter still echoed in his ears. There were things about her he couldn't ignore. The way she tilted her head when she was curious, exactly like him. The way she furrowed her brow in focus. The quiet habit of turning a ring around her thumb when deep in thought. He did the same thing. And her voice. "My mom used to tell me about you." That line had lodged in his chest. 6 years ago, Aubrey had disappeared from his life. 5 years ago, Luna was born. The timeline matched. He pushed the report aside. The numbers could wait. The truth couldn't. The next morning, Jackson visited Luna's preschool under the pretense of delivering a corporate donation for classroom supplies. He wore the usual tailored suit and calm smile, playing the role everyone expected. But the moment Luna saw him, she ran into his arms. "Mr. Jackson." He knelt, hugging her close. Over her shoulder, he saw Aubrey frozen in the doorway, her expression unreadable. A nearby teacher chuckled. "You two look alike. Same eyes, same smile. It's uncanny." Jackson saw the panic flicker across Aubrey's face as she quickly redirected the conversation and guided Luna away. But it was too late. Jackson left without a word. An hour later, he stood at Aubrey's doorstep, heart pounding. Leaning against the railing was a small pink bike, carefully painted. On its side, in uneven letters, were the initials, LW. His breath caught in his throat. Luna Wolf. Aubrey opened the door. Surprise turned to something closer to dread. "Is something wrong?" she asked gently. "Yes," Jackson said. "It's about your daughter." She hesitated. Then he pulled something from his coat, a beaded bracelet Luna had dropped the day before. On the heart-shaped charm were 2 tiny letters, J.W. "She said she made this herself," he said. "Who helped her? J.W. That is not random." Aubrey stood motionless, her eyes shimmering. "I counted the years," he continued. "You left 6 years ago. Luna is 5. Did you think I would not notice?" Aubrey's lips parted. Her voice barely made a sound. You were everywhere back then. On every magazine cover. You were about to get married. I was just a page you turned. No, Jackson whispered, voice cracking. You were the chapter I never finished. He stepped closer. Tell me the truth. Is she mine? Aubrey let the tears come. She gave a slow, silent nod. Jackson inhaled sharply. His legs nearly gave way. All this time, he said, barely above a whisper. I had a daughter. I wasn't hiding her to hurt you, Aubrey said. I was protecting her. You were falling apart. I didn't know if you'd even survive it. I thought she'd only make it harder. He gave a soft, bitter laugh. But she's the only thing that would have saved me. He turned away for a moment, gathering himself. Then he faced her again, steadier. I need time, he said. Not to forgive you, but to learn how to be a father to her. He turned, slipping the bracelet into his pocket with shaking fingers. Just as he reached the steps, he heard a small voice behind him. Mr. Jackson. He turned. Luna stood there, clutching her lavender plush bunny. She looked up at him with big, earnest eyes. Don't be sad. Mommy says good people always find their way back to where they belong. His chest ached. He knelt, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. I promise, he said, voice thick. I'll come back, okay? Luna nodded solemnly and wrapped her arms around his neck. As he walked away, the sunset painted the sky in gold. In his hand was the bracelet his daughter had made, the first piece of her he would carry with him. A new chapter had begun, and this time he would not walk away. Jackson didn't rush. After learning the truth, he moved slowly, carefully, not wanting to break something fragile. He spent more time with Luna. He never called himself her father, not yet. Instead, he listened, watched, and learned. She painted clouds that looked like animals, made up stories about talking flowers, and asked questions that stayed with him. Do grown-ups forget people they love if they're too busy? No, sweetheart, he'd say. They might try, but love doesn't forget. Aubrey remained cautious. She let him in, one step at a time. Trust didn't rebuild overnight, but each time Jackson showed up outside Luna's classroom just to wave goodbye or knelt to tie her shoes without a word, Aubrey's guard dropped a little more. Miles changed too. The shy boy who once clung to his father's leg now ran to greet Luna each morning. They became inseparable, two puzzle pieces finally put together. And Aubrey became Miss Aubrey to Miles, a name he said with a kind of warmth that pierced Jackson's chest. Then, on a regular Tuesday, everything shifted. Jackson called Aubrey in a mild panic. An emergency meeting had been moved up, and his sitter was stuck in traffic. Miles had already been picked up and was waiting on the daycare steps. I'll go get him, Aubrey offered immediately. He can stay with us until you're done. That evening, Jackson arrived at her house. The front door was slightly open. He stepped inside and stopped. On the living room rug, Luna and Miles sat cross-legged among a mess of Legos, building something oddly spaceship-like. Aubrey knelt beside them, reading from a picture book. One hand rested on Miles's soft hair as she read aloud. Jackson stood silently. His throat tightened. He hadn't seen a moment like this in years. Peace, belonging, family. When Aubrey looked up and noticed him, she smiled, surprised but calm. They built that all by themselves, she said, nodding to the lopsided Lego ship. He nodded, speechless. Miles ran to him and hugged his leg. Then Luna joined. Aubrey walked over, voice soft. He had 2 bowls of stew. Hope that's okay. It's perfect, Jackson said. But peace is fragile, and the past doesn't always stay buried. On a bright Saturday, Jackson took the kids to the park. Luna chased butterflies. Miles played on the swing. He pushed the swing gently, smiling, until a cold, familiar voice stopped him. Well, isn't this domestic? He turned. Celeste stood there in heels and a designer coat, sunglasses perched on her head, arms crossed. Her eyes flicked from Jackson to Aubrey, who stood frozen nearby. "Miles," Celeste cooed. "Come say hi to Mommy." The boy hesitated. Jackson stepped between them, jaw tight. After an awkward moment, Celeste pulled Jackson aside. "I want to come back," she said. "Miles is my son. He belongs with me. You left when he could barely talk." Her smile was thin. "And now you're back in the headlines. Success looks good on you. I'm just here to complete the redemption arc." "You're not part of this story anymore," he said firmly. She stepped closer, her voice like ice. "Then I'll fight for custody. The courts might like hearing about your emotional history, or the fact that you've hidden a child from the public. You're not exactly stable, are you?" Then she walked off. That night, the warmth was gone. Jackson told Aubrey everything. She listened in silence, arms crossed tightly. Luna was asleep in the other room. "I knew something would come to take this away," she whispered. "I won't let her," he said. "I'm not talking about her," she said, her voice breaking. "I'm talking about us. I've seen how fast things fall apart. I can't let Luna, or Miles, get caught in that." He stepped closer, wanting to reach her, but she took a step back. "I think we should put space between us, for now." Jackson's chest ached. He wanted to argue, but the look in her eyes stopped him. She wasn't angry. She was protecting something she loved. And he realized, for the first time, that love wasn't just about showing up. It was about fighting, patiently, honestly, for the chance to stay. Not just for custody, not for control, but for trust. For them, Jackson sat across from Celeste in a sleek law office high above the city, the windows offering a foggy view of Manhattan. She wore red lipstick and a smug expression, legs crossed, manicured nails tapping rhythmically against her handbag. "You always did look good under pressure," she said smoothly. "But let's not pretend you're in control here." He stayed silent. Celeste leaned forward, smile razor sharp. "You want to play happy family with your ex and her kid? Fine. But I'm Miles's mother, and I have every right to bring him back. Especially now that the media's rediscovered your name. And if I recall correctly, 2 years ago you were one bankruptcy away from a breakdown." Jackson didn't flinch. "You mean the breakdown you walked away from? That's called survival, Jackson." "No," he said calmly, opening a folder and sliding it across the table. "This is survival." Inside, documents, therapy records, parenting schedules, a glowing psychological evaluation, even references from Miles's daycare, all meticulously prepared. Celeste's expression faltered for the first time. And then came the final piece. "I wanted to keep this private," Jackson said, sliding over a tablet. "But Miles asked to say something, just in case." He pressed play. On screen, Miles sat on his small bed, clutching his stuffed fox. His voice was soft, but clear. "Daddy always reads to me before bed. He makes pancakes on Sundays. Miss Aubrey helps me draw. I like our house. I don't want it to change again." Then, after a pause, he looked into the camera. "I love my daddy." Silence. The lawyer beside Celeste leaned over and whispered something into her ear. Her jaw tensed. The smugness faded. "This isn't over," she muttered, standing. "It already is," Jackson replied. Rain fell softly as Jackson stood on the steps outside Aubrey's house. The porch light glowed behind the screen door, casting warm light on her silhouette as she opened it. She looked surprised and tired. "Is everything okay?" she asked quietly. He nodded. "It's done. She's not coming after Miles." Relief flickered across her face, but so did hesitation. "And now?" Jackson stepped forward, his voice low and steady. "Now, I stopped letting fear write my story." She blinked. "I do not want another chance with the past. I want a future." His eyes searched hers. "And it's you, Aubrey. It's Luna. It's Miles." He reached for her hand, rain sliding down his face. "That's home. You're my home." Aubrey stared at him, then stepped into his arms, tears already streaming down her cheeks. She clung to him as if the weight of 6 years had finally lifted. "I was so scared," she whispered. "I didn't want to believe we could have this." "You don't have to believe alone anymore," he whispered back. For the first time, no more secrets, no more distance, just love, raw, real, and finally spoken aloud. Inside the house, Luna and Miles peeked through the window, giggling at the sight of their parents in the rain. And just like that, the four of them were no longer pieces trying to fit. They were a whole. 6 months later, the garden behind their cottage in the Vermont countryside had been transformed into something out of a storybook. Strings of golden lights hung from the white wooden fence, swaying gently in the breeze. Lavender bloomed along the gravel path, its scent drifting in the summer air. Chairs lined both sides of the aisle, filled with the few people who had stood by them through the hardest chapters. At the end of the path, Luna, wearing her favorite pink dress, walked slowly, scattering handfuls of lavender petals from a woven basket. Her curls bounced with each step, her grin as wide as the sun. Just behind her, Miles stood proudly in his tiny suit, both hands clutching a velvet box containing 2 simple gold rings. His face was serious, determined. Today, he was his father's best man. At the altar, Jackson Wolfe stood waiting, dressed in a slate-gray suit that matched the soft sky above. But it was not the suit that made him handsome. It was the way he looked at the woman walking toward him. Aubrey's hair was braided gently down both sides, framing her face with softness. Her dress was simple, no lace or sequins, just flowing white cotton that moved with her like the breeze. Her eyes were full of light, her steps steady as she walked hand in hand with her mother, who once doubted Jackson but now wiped away proud tears. When Aubrey reached him, Jackson took her hands in his voice just above a whisper. "I never believed in second chances," he said, "but you were mine." The ceremony was short, heartfelt. No grand speeches, just vows written in quiet nights, exchanged beneath the open sky. When it was done, when the cheers had faded into music and laughter, Luna tugged at Jackson's sleeve. "Daddy," she said, her voice soft but certain. He knelt beside her, heart already full. "I have a wish," he smiled. "What is it, Princess?" She leaned in close, her breath warm against his cheek. "I wish we'll always be a family, and never go away again." Jackson looked at Aubrey, who was now his wife, his anchor. Her eyes met his, full of love and quiet promise. He pulled Luna into his arms, holding her tight. That wish already came true. As night fell, the garden grew quieter, lit only by the soft glow of lanterns and the laughter of 2 children chasing fireflies. Then came the final moment. Jackson stood between Aubrey and the kids, each of them holding a paper lantern, its base flickering with flame. Together, they released them into the night sky. 4 lights rose, side by side, drifting into the stars. From behind, they looked like a portrait. 2 adults, 2 small silhouettes, all connected by something invisible but unbreakable. And as the lanterns disappeared into the darkness, a voice echoed in the stillness. Some people stop believing in love. Some give up on family. But sometimes, love finds you anyway. In a hailstorm, in the scent of lavender, in the voice of a child who didn't know your name, only your heart. The story didn't end here. It had only just begun. If this story touched your heart, if you felt the warmth of a second chance, the quiet strength of a father's love, or the innocence of a child's wish, don't forget to support us. Subscribe to Soul-Stirring Stories for more emotional journeys just like this. And if this story made you smile, cry, or believe in love again, hit that hype button to let us know. Your support keeps these stories alive. See you in the next one.